Hi everybody, welcome. Welcome to our webinar on meeting the sustainability requirements for the European market. I see that many people of you have logged in, so I guess it's time to start. Today we will be discussing sustainable issues in the coffee sector, requirements by European buyers, how and where to start improving your environmental and sustainable social sustainability, and the advantages and pitfalls when doing so. I am very excited about today, and I hope that you are too. I've seen that our attendees come from all over the world. There are especially many attendees from Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Indonesia, Costa Rica, Colombia, India, Nigeria, Bolivia, Peru, Sri Lanka, Brazil, Rwanda, Vietnam, and many other countries from all over the world. So most producing countries actually are represented among our listeners. And personally, I think that meeting European sustainability demands is a very important topic, and I'm very delighted to notice that there seems to be a global interest in this topic. My name is Tjalling de Boer. I am leading the research team for the coffee and cocoa sector on behalf of CBI, and today I am your moderator. Now let's talk about the program of today. Today we will be discussing meeting the European sustainability demands, and the main goals for today are to get you inspired and informed about working on your sustainability, to offer insight into current demands by European buyers and how these will change in the coming years, to get an idea on where to start working on your sustainability, and to learn about the pitfalls and the benefits when working on your sustainability. But before we get into that interesting content, we need to explain something about GoToWebinar, which is the tool we use for this session. Now, the tool is really simple, and you only have a few elements in your menu. The first one is the audio pane, and if you hear as well, you don't need to do anything with that part of the menu. If you do have audio problems, you might consider changing your device, so switch from your phone to your laptop or the other way around. Only do so if you have trouble hearing us. Since we do not use any handouts, the next important option in your menu is the question pane. Now this one is really important actually. You need to know that we cannot hear or see you. So you can wave at us, but we won't notice. However, you do have the option to post questions in the field under questions. I really invite you to do so. We don't have time to answer all of your questions, but we will try to answer as many questions as possible. And also on the background, a team of CBI members is available to answer some of these questions. So please add your question to the question pane. Now, the last thing I would like to mention is that during the webinar, we will be using one or multiple polls. So during the webinar, we will interact with you by raising a question which will just pop up on your screen. You can just click the answer you prefer most, and well, that's it. Now, Simone, it's up to you. Can you shortly introduce yourself and explain CBI for those unfamiliar with us?
Sure, thank you, Tjalling, and a special thank you to all the participants today. We were really happy to see the strong interest in this topic and in today's webinar. We also have a really exciting group of experts lined up to talk to you today, so I don't want to take up too much of their time, but I would like to give you a short introduction about CBI, the organization hosting today's webinar. So as Tjalling mentioned, I'm Simone Snoeijenbos. I'm a program manager at CBI. And I work across a few sectors, and that includes coffee, of course. Now, CBI is a Dutch organization. It's an agency of the government of the Netherlands, and CBI stands for the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. We are part of the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, and our funding comes, as I mentioned, from the government. So it comes from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. So our mission at CBI is to support SMEs in strengthening their sustainability through exports. What does that mean? How do we do it? We try to offer practical solutions for the bottlenecks that many exporters or SMEs, such as yourself, experience as they're trying to export to Europe, or as they're trying to improve their exports to Europe, make them more sustainable, or deepen their value chains. Now, one way that we do this is by creating value through knowledge. Now, we know that one of the largest struggles of SMEs or aspiring exporters, such as yourselves, is the lack of relevant and up-to-date information about the European market and about the process of how to get to the market, how to access it. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Tjalling. Part of our very important part of CBI's work is therefore the market information that we provide. This is information that we produce and we provide and make available to all of you completely free on our website. You can see the link here on our slide. And it's specifically targeted and set up in a way that, you know, it really speaks to exporting SMEs in developing countries. Based on the experience within CBI, we try to produce information that really tackles your needs and those bottlenecks that I was talking about earlier. We cover a number of sectors, mostly in the agricultural sector, but also a few processed goods as well as services such as tourism. As you can imagine, coffee is a very important sector for us. And what am I talking about when I refer to market information? What can you find in our website? This is primarily market studies to help you better understand the European market for your specific sector or your specific product. So what's the potential there? What's the demand? You know, what trends and opportunities do we see? How is the market changing so that you can prepare yourself and prepare your exports for the coming years? But also a set of very practical tips. So if you go into the website and look through the coffee sector, you'll also see information, for example, on how to find buyers, on how to do business with European importers, for example, about how to start preparing your exports once you've made a connection and once you actually have a targeted market that you'd like to access. And the last part of our market information are, of course, webinars such as this one. So all our webinars are held live, but they are also recorded and afterwards published both on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. So if you have any colleagues or friends or people in the sector that might have an interest in these webinars, but were unable to join today, you can always point them towards the link. It'll be recorded and published in a few days. Towards the end of this session, if we still have some time, I'll give you all a bit of a closer look at how you can access our market information. But for now, I don't want to take away too much time from our experts, so I'll give it back to you, Tjalling, to introduce them.
Yes, thank you very much, Simone. Now, as I mentioned before, it won't be just me and Simone presenting this. Well, we're very dependent here on our experts, so I'm very happy to introduce them. Frederic, Grace, Alex, please turn on your cameras and show your faces to our attendees. Frederic, could you start? Could you kick off and introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Tjalling. So like Tjalling just mentioned, I'm Frederic Amon-Armah. I'm a socioeconomic and market researcher. My expertise has mainly been on cocoa, coffee, cola nut, cashew, share, and researching on the value chain and supply chains. Also looking at smallholder technology adoption, and I also look at their behavior in terms of adoption of very good practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to attend today. My name's Alex Schumann. I work as an account manager and impact coordinator for the Coffee Quest, a specialty green coffee importer. You can see my lovely team over here in this picture. We're based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. We currently import around 130 different coffees from 7 different origins and sell these to around 350 European clients. We focus a lot on micro and single farm lots, but also import some larger regional lots. Our core values center around transparency, collaboration, and quality, and these also form the foundations for our sourcing and purchasing approach. So rather than imposing our values onto producers, we look for producers that share these values already and work to build long-term relationships with them. Just quickly, we also have a sister company, the Coffee Quest Colombia, which is an export business based in Colombia, which deals with our Colombian producers directly. Here we have a team of around 50 people. And lastly, we also have some pioneer projects, which is where we focus on financing larger, more complex sustainability efforts. And we currently have 2 of these running, one in Uganda and in Colombia. And I'll tell you more about those later.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about that. Now, first, Grace, could you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. My name is Grace Izerwe. I'm the production manager at Kopakama. Kopakama is a coffee farmers cooperative located in the western province of Rwanda. We are a cooperative which started in 1998. We do coffee production by coffee farming, processing, and we do export coffee, specialty coffee to Europe and United States of America, but the big part is exported to Europe. So I'm happy to share my experience of sustainability from our cooperative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. Thank you all for your introduction. I am looking forward to hearing more from you. But now we go to our first top topic, which is the importance of addressing the sustainability issue. So why is that so important? But before really kicking that off, I would like to, well, add a short poll. So I am asking you this question. So my question to you is, what is the most important sustainability issue in the coffee market? Is that child labor? Would it be deforestation, or is that livelihood of the farmers? So you can just click on the answer you prefer most. And I'm very curious about your answers. Okay, I see many people voting at the moment, so that's great. If you haven't voted yet, so please do so. I would love to make this a bit more interactive. Most people voted already, so I give you a few more seconds. Okay, I'm closing the poll in 10 seconds. And here are the results. I see 6% voting child labor, 18% deforestation, and a huge majority, 76% voting for the livelihood of the farmers. Now, Frederic, our attendees have the feeling that the key sustainability issue here is the livelihood of the farmers. Can you enlighten us and share your thoughts on this matter? And what is the most important sustainability issue?
Thank you very much, Tjalling, and thank you for participants for also voting. Yes, I think it's very right. The livelihood of farmers is the main underlying issue for most of the sustainability issues that we talk about. Why is it so? The farmer is faced with an objective. The main objective why the farmer is farming is to get money to feed their families and to cater for their homes, and also to contribute in their society. And so the main thing is to maximize their profits. And in maximizing their profit, the farmer is faced with the issue of reducing cost and also reducing social and environmental impact. Most of the time, the farmers are asked to implement this and do that, and do this and do that. And there are many recommendations that come that they have to comply with, so that they can be able to reduce their social negative impacts and also the environmental impacts that comes from their production. But as a matter of fact, they are also faced with low incomes, right? So how do they balance this? I mean, balancing low incomes and trying to maximize your profits, reducing costs, reducing the social environmental impacts becomes very difficult. One of the main challenges is high cost of labor, and labor takes about 60% of the cost of production. And because of that, the farmers will have to supplement that sometimes with their children, helping them on their farms. They miss schools, but they also have to help their parents so that they can afford money or get to be able to sustain their livelihoods. This cycle continues, and it leads to malnutrition, and the poverty cycle continues. Another way that low incomes or livelihood of farmers contribute to sustainability issues is that once they have low income, then they need to get more money. They need to get more revenue from their coffee. So they plant at high densities under full sun by trying to increase their planting and densities or increase their land area. And once they do that, they get more yields in the short run, but in the long term, they are faced with, okay, there's loss of soil fertility, there's loss of nutrients for the crops to take up because there's so much competition. And then they begin to now intensify by adding more fertilizers, spraying more pesticides, because then also because of the intensity, there's also diseases and pests, right? So once they do that, they cannot afford to buy the quality ones, and so they also buy the fake ones and other materials that leave a lot of residue. So they lose the biodiversity, the insects that are of benefits to the environment, and those that are benefits to the soil are all lost through the addition of synthetic chemicals, which also continues to build up residue in the soil, and that also loses the soil quality. So the soil health is reduced, and in the long run, yields keep on reducing. So once yields are decreasing, then what happens is, okay, let me abandon this farm, let me clear a new forest and plant a new one, and then the deforestation cycle continues. So basically, the root cause of environmental and social issues, as we talk about, is the farmer's livelihood, but this has links to child labor and it has also links to deforestation. Thank you very much. So the next is to be able to go against these things, which for exporters and cooperatives to make sure that you pay fair prices. Most of the time, exporters have very little collaboration with farmers, but if you collaborate through cooperatives and the farmers, we can understand most of their production issues, the production cycles, the things that they need to do to be able to get produce at quality and the best quantity as well, whilst not incurring so much cost. So you need to really partner with the farmers to understand the real cost of production and then be able to give them the fair prices that can help them to live a good life. And when that is done, it helps to reduce child labor, and also they can also practice agroforestry and things that will practices that will enhance the environment. Some good companies or cooperatives that have taking the lead in this is Sustainable Harvest Group, and there's also Masaka Cooperatives and then Kopakama. These cooperatives are doing well by supporting farmers with planting trees and also providing the seedlings of these trees for the farmers. Sometimes the farmers will have to buy, which also comes at a cost, but these cooperatives provide for the farmers. They also train them on how to manage these trees. In the long run, the farmers can also get a lot of income from harvesting this forest if it is done in the right way and it's registered. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Frederic. Now, to me, that answer was very clear, so thanks a lot for that. Well, if you do have questions on Frederic's story, or perhaps on something what I said, or you have questions for CBI or whatever, it doesn't really matter, just any questions you have to us, just please add those to the question pane, and we do have some time during our webinar to answer those questions later. So please add your questions to the question pane. Now, in the meantime, while we continue, I first have a new question to you. And the question is, why is it important to address sustainability issues? Is it mainly because it increases business opportunities, because it benefits nature, because it reduces human suffering, because you just need to stay in business in the long term, or is it to boost your buyer's reputation? So please just click on the answer you consider best, and I will share the results with you in a minute. Okay, give you a few seconds to provide your answer. I see many people voting, but not nearly all. So I would love to hear what you think. So please click the answer you prefer most. Give you 10 more seconds. And I'm closing the poll right now. So you can see the results right now. So why is it important 80% considers it increases business opportunities, 17% sees it benefits nature, 21% sees it reduces human suffering, and 43% considers it the most sustainability issue because, well, you just need to stay in business on the long term. And I'm very happy to see that only 1% opted for the last option to boost your buyer's reputation. Now, Frederic, in your research, you mentioned some advantages for suppliers. Which benefits did you see based on your research?
Yes, from the polls, I can also congratulate those that voted. That they chose a very good answer. That means that you need to stay in business for a long term, while all the other options could be true and also very interconnected. One of the main benefits is that when you are able to adhere to sustainable practices, you are able to access new markets. Retailers and distributors in Europe are constantly seeking for suppliers that meet ethical and sustainable standards, right? And so when they find that, okay, you are practicing very sustainable, adhering to sustainable practices, then it becomes easier to buy your produce, because the consumers also in Europe who are also consuming the coffee products are becoming more concerned about the sustainability of the production, not just the production, but of the world, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing ecological impacts, so that, well, like we mentioned, well, human suffering can also reduce, right? So it's indirectly connected. But so that's why you need to adhere to this. So once you get access to new markets, you're able to get more buyers coming to buy from you. You increase your customer base, and it helps you to also increase your revenue stream, and then a lot of reach, which is good for your for you, because then you are able to get more profit. There's also one advantage is that it reduces your dependency on a single market structure, or where when you have only one buyer who decides not to buy from you anymore, then there's very high risk that your business can collapse, or you can run at a loss. So you reduce your overall business risks once you have access to new markets. You have various different channels through which you can sell. Can I get the next slide, please? Yeah, then you also get the benefit of loyalty by your stakeholders. So your employees and customers become very loyal, because they know, okay, this is a farmer or a cooperative that produces under these very good conditions that will help us at the same time make our consumers very happy. So many European customers want to support businesses that share their values and their beliefs about sustainability, and more than half of these European consumers pay attention to environmental impacts. About 2/3 are willing to pay even more for products that meet sustainability. So these are the advantages. Then you're able to get more money for adhering. So especially if you take into consideration the cost of adhering, consumers and customers are willing to pay more to be able to offset that kind of cost. The next slide, please. Another important benefit is that, well, it also enhances your reputation, and once it enhances your reputation, well, indirectly it also enhances the reputation of your buyer, who is going to also sell to consumers or the end users, right? So in the African proverb, we have something that we say that a good name is better than wealth. Once you get a good name and your reputation is enhanced, you get referrals, you get potential business and partners and investors coming to you without you actually reaching out to them. It also builds your relationship. You become a better supplier within your community, within your even for farmers. You have a better relationship with your farmers, because you're able to build a better working environment. That also increases your trust for the farmers that you work with. Next slide, please. Okay, so thank you very much. I think I'll hand over to Tjalling.
Thank you very much, Frederic. To me, that was a very clear answer. But if you do have any questions for us, I think this is your chance. This is your opportunity to ask some questions to a few very knowledgeable experts. And we do have times to answer some of your questions later during the session. So please just ask them. And if there are no wrong questions, you could just ask any question you would like to ask here in the question pane. Now, Grace, I would like to go to you. Frederic just mentioned some benefits. Your company has been working hard in the past few years to increase sustainability. Which of those benefits that Frederic mentioned did you achieve?
Thank you so much. So the benefits we have gained all over these past years. First of all, we gained from the coffee production, where you have been able to be more sustainable in the coffee production. This is about to increase the coffee in quantity, but also in quality. Now we have gained 5 more operating zones where farmers do have their own farms, coffee farms, but also the cooperative also owns like 3 demonstration plots. We have also been able to be sustainable in the quality. This is about owning 3 washing stations where we can trace and process our own coffee and hurry it at our dry mill, so we can be sure that the quality is ensured. And we have also been focusing on the certification. So this is about the coffee certificate that we sell our coffee using the different coffee market access using certification. We are fair trade, organic and rainforest certified, and we have been able to remain on the market since now we are selling about between 8 and 10 containers per year. So this is a good thing that we already think that we'll be able to produce even more due to we have 3 washing stations that are able to produce even more containers, and we also focus on training our farmers on good agriculture practices so they can be also sustainable and think about the coming production years. So if we are in 2023, what about the 5 coming years where we'll be maybe exporting between 20 and 30 containers? So I think we have also expanded our coffee areas of production. So that's what I was saying. Now we have got the more than 800 hectares of production since 1998 when we started. So the other part is about also building good relationship with the partners. Next slide, please. So we have been able to work with different partners. This is about different banks, different buyers, different NGOs. So we have been able to work with tailors of Arrogate through sustainable harvest, where they have bought for our cooperative 2 demonstration plots where farmers come to learn on how to grow coffee, how to do good agriculture practice so they can practice on their own farms. And we have been working with USDF. It's a development fund from the USA, where they constructed for us 1 coffee washing stations, a modern one with good infrastructure, which will always help us to remain with our quality, mainly for the different buyers, like the good quality from Kopakama, which is processed to our coffee washing stations facilities. So we have been also working with shared interests as giving us loans, but also supporting our youth group since 2021. They invest in youth group, which is a group of youth where we think about coming generations. You know, in Rwanda, many coffee farmers are too old, as well as their coffee trees. So as the cooperative, we think that investing in the youth, we can remain sustainable on the market in coming years. So we have been also working with artisan coffee imports, which our loyal client from the USA in the Michigan. This company is buying our coffee, women coffee, in our group called Izerwe. So the company has always been giving bonuses to the women to encourage them to continue growing coffee and to support them to remain sustainable, so to increase their income and their families. So the company also has been providing different trainings, like on the lean and Kaizen trainings to the workers on how to minimize costs during the processing, during the production. And also I would say about the root capital. This partner has been helping the
Grace, unfortunately, I can't hear you anymore, but I think your answer was mostly very clear. You answered most of my question about those many benefits that you achieve by, well, working on your sustainable, and that I think that is really something great to work for. Now, Alex, I do have a question for you. Like Kopakama is one supplier, but you work with many suppliers. I am wondering, from your perspective, what does it bring those suppliers working on their sustainability?
Yeah, thanks, Tjalling. I think first and foremost, investing in these sustainability efforts needs to be reflected in increased and definitely more stable household income. As Frederic just explained earlier, household income lies at the heart of a lot of major sustainability issues. I'm going to focus my answers on the classic coffee quest sourcing approach in our Colombia sister company, and also with our Pioneer projects. The terms are a little bit different, but I'll speak more about those in the end. Also, other importers will have different approaches and perspectives, but I can't speak on those today. So for the Coffee Quest, we believe in a transparent purchasing model where we pay a price premium for the quality of the coffee. This means that if you as a producer fall into the Coffee Quest profile, we will invest in you as a producer and your product. We invest a lot of time and energy into sharing the story behind the coffee with our clients. That includes background information on the producer, the producing community, as well as the environmental, social, and economic efforts that they're paying attention to. Every client that buys a coffee from us also receives this information, and we have consequently built a client base that values and has largely come to expect producers that make an extra effort for sustainability. In this sense, the immediate benefits of working on sustainability issues aren't always immediately clear. This is largely because the extent and also the type and the form of benefit depends on the producer himself and what areas they want to invest into. We follow a very personal approach to sourcing and go through a lot of efforts to meet and get to know our producers before working with them. This way we can come to understand their challenges, what sustainability efforts they want to work on, and also what they've been working on already. And where appropriate, we give our advice and suggestions and support. But what sustainability efforts are eventually addressed and the extent to which the producer sees that benefit is up to them. If I could please have the next slide. So this might sound a little bit rough, but just let me explain. So we recognize producers as owners and entrepreneurs in their own right. So you know what sustainability needs you need to target, whether it's tackling issues of deforestation on your farm or child labor. Our role in this equation is to build a strong partnership with producers and to enable you, the producer, to tackle the sustainability needs specific for you and your production. From our experience, producers are already aware of the challenges, and often they already have projects or at least ideas in the works on how to tackle them. One aspect that we as producers as importers, do expect from our producers? Oh, so no, is full transparency. And this burden to supply the additional information does fall on the shoulders of the producers. We support you in telling you what we need, but would you ask our producers to supply that to us? This isn't only necessary for us to build a strong and also trusting relationship with our producers, but it's also driven by customer demand. So we as importers have noticed that there's an ever increasing demand by European roasters for transparent information from our producers. People want to know every detail about their coffee, and the more that you, the producer, can provide, the easier it is for us to sell your product. We have roasters asking for coffees from specific farmers or specific producers, and they do build a very strong affinity to the product. That also then allows them to build a long-term relationship. As an example, we had a Austrian client recently who tried some cascara from Colombia that he absolutely fell in love with, and they wanted to upscale the production, but the producer needed support, and the client actually volunteered to help support and finance the necessary infrastructure for that producer in Colombia. So really a lot of this is relationship based. If I could have the next slide, please. So just one thing that I did want to stress, because I heard Grace talk a lot about certifications. What I'm telling you is the sourcing demands and the benefits of the Coffee Quest, which is only one European importer. As I mentioned before, other importers will have different values and different focal points. Especially, this often comes down to size. So especially larger importers that can have larger financial budgets, they will often be able to finance many certifications, and they also have larger clients that are also able to finance multiple certifications. And these will be much more interested in whether or not you as a producer are certified. For us, for example, we work a lot with smaller producers. We also have a lot of smaller clients. And for both of these, the expenses and the specific requirements of obtaining certain certifications like Rainforest Alliance or Certified Organic are very difficult or often unobtainable. I don't know if you guys knew this, but roasters and importers like us, we also have to pay to get certified. So as a larger percentage of both our customer market and our producer demographic struggle to get these certifications don't tend to rank that highly in our sourcing decisions. We do get some clients asking for coffees from certain certifications, and we just have to tell them that, sorry, I mean, our producers, they do produce organically, but they don't have the certification. We don't have the certification. It's up to you. That usually is enough for people to understand and still buy the coffee. This does also, of course, again, come back to being fully transparent and traceable in your processes, so we can then show and explain to the clients, look, even if they're not certified, they're still producing it in this way. They still share those values for organic production. I think the key is to just always know your importer's market and to know what your importer wants and expects from you. If they're not necessary, then don't invest into expensive certifications. But if they can open doors to a specific market and to a specific partnership with an importer, then by all means do so. But that's up to you as a producer to decide. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Alex, for that. It's great to hear that from a European buyer. Now, yeah, well, we still have a lot of ground to cover, but I think it's also very important to take a bit of time for those questions that you added to the question pane. So to start off, there was one question about CBI, Simone. What exactly does CBI do to ensure sustainability of coffee farming?
Sure, thank you, Tjalling, and thank you for the question. I mean, I wish I could say that we somehow ensure the sustainability of coffee. That is quite a task, as we're hearing today. But we do try to contribute in, I would say, basically two ways. The first one is by providing the type of information that we are discussing today. What are the challenges? What are the benefits? and what are the practical ways that cooperatives and farmers can get started on their sustainability journey. I wanted to save this till the end, but I'll already give a spoiler. We do have 2 new studies that will be published soon. These focus specifically on tips to go green in the coffee sector and tips to become more socially responsible. They're really hands-on and stepwise tips that exporters can apply in their businesses to ensure increased sustainability in their coffee. And the second way that I would just want to highlight quickly is that we do provide technical assistance as CBI in a few select countries. So for example, we have a project running right now in Guinea that focuses on the coffee sector. And within this technical assistance, where we work directly with cooperatives and farmers, we support them to, for example, develop corporate CSR plans, corporate social plans, and we support them in the implementation as well. We also, for example, provide support in certification. So I'd say it's basically the provision of information on sustainability as well as a bit of technical assistance. So moving on with the questions, of course, Frederic, you mentioned the high labor costs and how these feed into the issues that we see in the sector. Somebody asked, what is it that makes labor costs in the sector so high? Is it a particularly labor-intensive sector?
Frederic, you were muted.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon. Yes, so coffee production is very labor intensive. Grace is on the field and Alex is also on the field, and they know what it involves. Yeah, especially in the eastern part of Africa, most of the coffee farms are on hills, and farmers will need to climb up the hill whilst weeding or applying pesticides or even harvesting, right? So harvesting is also one of the most tedious in coffee, or you have to pick only the ripe berries to ensure that you have a certain quality, and it takes time, right? You have to also sometimes you have to spread some kind of polythene on the farm and be able to harvest on, and or you put in a basket. So it's very time consuming and very labor intensive. That is why it is very costly.
Indeed, absolutely. Thank you, Frederic. And there's another question also looking into the experience on the field from Femke. This one I think is for you, Grace. It's a question for Kopakama. How do you balance expanding an area, so when your business is growing, and at the same time avoiding deforestation? Are you implementing any practices that increase your yield, of course, without increasing the area and thereby contributing to deforestation?
Yes, thank you, Simon. So the first thing that to do the good agriculture practices, we do train our farmers. So before they start to get into harvesting, just train them through before the season. So we train them on how to make it more productive to their coffee plots. They are doing the mulching, they are doing the intercropping, they are protecting the soil texture so it can remain more productive. We are putting shade trees, so we are putting the agroforestry, we are practicing the soil, the erosion control. So we always make sure that we keep our soil more productive without doing the deforestation. As we are now certified, we always follow the standards with the rainforest areas where they avoid deforestation.
Great. Thank you, Grace. I'm not sure if we've lost you again, but you at least had the chance to provide a first answer. I have another question from...
I think one other way, can I add something, is to also, a technology that is upcoming, rehabilitation and renovation, where most farmers will want to either abandon their farms or plant new ones. So instead of going or expanding to new forest, the same old farm, like Grace said, well, you make sure yourself you apply organic and all that. But at the same time, when trees are old and have to be replaced, you can actually do that on the same farm without going to a new land. So you just cut it to rejuvenate, and or you actually replace the whole plant by putting a new one there. And this also helps you to not venture new areas and cut more trees, but within the same farm, rehabilitate the farm, or renovate the farm.
Great, thanks for adding that in. Indeed, not an easy balance to strike, but good to know that there are techniques and approaches that can be applied in the field. To close off this Q&A session, we do have more questions, but we can get to them towards the end. We have one from Gerard in Indonesia, and he says, I'm a beginner. I need to know how I can learn about coffee from the basics. Here, so in Indonesia, we have plenty of good quality organic coffee, and I'm interested to start selling coffee to Europe. Now, if I can kick it off, of course, my first recommendation, Gerard, is to go into the CBI website, because we do have studies that start with giving you an impression of what the European market looks like and what the demand is and where this demand is concentrated. So in so much as a country level, but also on specific segments and the kind of importers you need to start targeting. And we also have studies that then let you try to find these buyers and start making those connections. But if we're looking at a beginner, either Alex, Frederic, would you have any tips on how to get started?
I think, any networks you can jump on. That's always best to learn from other people. So if you know anybody else who's already in the coffee industry and they're exporting to the same market, then talk to those. See if maybe they can hook you up to their exporter. Instagram's a great thing in this day and age. Just we have all these mechanisms in place to reach out to other people. But I think the easiest way, if you're starting out, is see if there's anybody else in your vicinity who's importing to Europe right now, or who's kind of has the type of importing structure you would like to follow or copy, and see how they're doing it, and then use a personal connection.
Thank you. So make use of networks. Anything else, or shall we move on to the second block of presentations? All right, it sounds like we can keep going. So back to you, Tjalling. You're on mute, I believe.
Yes, thanks for telling me. Now it's time to continue with our topic. Now, I would like to stress that we do have a bit of time left at the end of the session to answer some additional questions. So if you do have questions, please add those to the question pane. Well, the next topic is the European sustainability demands. Now, Frederic, can you please tell us what are the European sustainability standards?
Yes, thank you very much, Tjalling. So 3 main sustainability standards are very important for coffee export to Europe. The first one is the European Union Green Deal, or the EU Green Deal, the European Union Deforestation-Free Regulations, and also the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. I'll go next into the slides to give a little bit more details about it. So the EU Green Deal is a comprehensive plan to make the EU's economy more sustainable. And one of the key goals to this deal is that the EU becomes climate neutral by the year 2050. The target is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by the year 2030 compared to the levels in 1990. At the same time, if you are cooperative and you want to be able to adhere to this deal, you can only try to practice sustainable practices or take up sustainable practices through your production process. Sustainable practices can include like Okay, so maybe let me hold on for that, but I'll come on to the next question and where I will answer what kind of sustainable practice that you can implement. So the next slide, I will talk more also about. So here we see the greenhouse gas emissions from the European Union since 1990 until 2021, and we can see from the graph that it was really high then, and the European Union is trying very hard to keep it coming down, and that is why we have the EU Green Deal in place to keep lowering it until we get like 55%, at least 55% of the levels that were being emitted in the year 1990. Next slide, please. So the next important regulation is the deforestation-free regulation. This aims to reduce deforestation and forest degradation worldwide. So EU is becoming more strict, so that they want to prohibit the sale of coffee produced on deforested and degraded land since the year 2020, since 31st December 2020, these regulations became very, very strict. The regulation will also come in force by the middle of this year, where now it's going to be really taking full force, and companies will have 18 months to comply to these rules. A set of criteria based on scientific evidence, including satellite imagery and forest monitoring systems to identify high-risk areas where deforestation and forest degradation is occurring, has been put in place to actually confirm or prove that your coffee is not coming from these areas. Now, in the next slides to come, or in the next question, I'll be telling you how you can be able to achieve this. This regulation. So the next regulation is the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, and this is also about human rights. It ensures respect for human rights and the environment throughout the entire supply chain, and it is very mandatory. The rules apply to companies with 3,000 or more employees. Well, as a startup, you may not have that much, but at least knowing these rules helps you to know the expectations or the demands that the EU has, and if you start applying them, it gives you an upper hand and a more competitive advantage over your competitors. So these guidelines applies to all companies who sell products and services to the EU, regardless of where they are based. So it doesn't matter whether you're in the EU or not. When you have employees more than this, or even if you have less, and you start complying, I think it gives you a very big advantage. Thank you. Okay, so Tjalling was to ask me about this question about how people can actually adhere to these regulations. Yes, so I'll just go ahead and give the answers. Like a lot of regulations. Yeah, so how can cooperatives adhere to the EU regulations? Yeah. For the first one is, as I said, the EU Green Deal. To be able to adhere, you have to just implement these sustainable practices such as agroforestry, reducing your waste, and reducing water use, reducing chemical usage. Agroforestry is actually planting trees within your coffee, or making sure you have a specific number of trees that gives enough shade for your coffee, at the same time not cutting down too much trees to increase your land area, but you can use various techniques to still increase your yields. Reducing water waste, so as at the level of cooperatives, for example, Grace shared a story about Kopakama, where they have what we call a digester, right? So the digester is able to help them reduce water use, where it absorbs the wastewater and then helps them to recycle and also compost, whilst reducing the waste that they would throw away instead of the coffee pulp, and then the shells that come from the coffee can be also turned into compost. So you reduce the waste, but you actually practice something like a circular model. You can also go into charring, which yeah, when when the new research is published, you will see how charring is done. It's one of the ways that can also help sustain the environment. You can also reduce chemical usage. If you actually reduce chemical usage, you are going to reduce the ecological the carbon footprints that you are actually applying, and at the same time helps you to reduce residues that will be in your coffee and enhance your chance of selling within the EU. The next slide. So with the deforestation-free regulations, you can ensure that you adhere to this regulation when your coffee is not produced from a deforested or degraded area. Sustainability for certification schemes can help you to comply. Most of these, like organic rainforest, they can help you to comply with this kind of regulation. If you are not certified, like Alex was talking about, farmers who are really small scale and certification is very expensive, yeah, you can also provide documents that you are actually producing coffee from a deforestation free area. And you can work with other companies like satellite Gens, and you can also work with FarmForce, which is a company that uses GPS and remote sensing to track where your coffee farm is and to be able to know using this, elevations and all that to see, okay, is your coffee grown from area which was formerly deforested? Did you cut down trees to plant your coffee? They can help you with those documents and also to prove that your coffee is not coming from a deforested area or degraded area. Next slide, please. So now the next talks about the due diligence directive, which is also becoming very, very strict. There's no chance to play around it. So as you grow, it just helps you to map out your supply chain to identify any high-risk areas where human risks, abuses, environmental harm, and other illegalities may occur. It also helps you to establish, you need to establish policies after identifying these high-risk areas. You need to establish policies and produce procedures that will help you to prevent this or reduce this risk in these areas, the risk of child labor, risk of human trafficking, all those kind of things within your supply chain. So if you have, for example, you are a cooperative and you have suppliers that supplies insecticides or pesticides or fertilizers, you also have to ensure that in supplying these things, they do not abuse human rights, or they actually also adhere to this due diligence directive. So within your supply chain, also from the farmers, you train and support them to help them improve their practices and to ensure that they adhere or comply with these regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frederic. Thank you very much for that overview on European regulation you need to adhere to and the first steps you could take in doing so. Now, let's go from regulation to buyers. Now, we don't have the time to discuss all buyers' demands because demands can differ from buyer to buyer. But let us zoom in a bit and ask Alex. Alex, can you tell us a bit about the demands at the CoffeeQuest Europe?
Yeah, thanks. So at the CoffeeQuest, our primary demands are still very much based around our CoffeeQuest values. So that's already, we spoke about these a little bit before. We demand transparency in production. Of course, the product also has to be there, so that's where the quality element comes in. We deal with a specialty market, predominantly Arabica. So that means we're looking at an SEA score of 82+. Most of our products are between 84, 87. And that's also the quality that our clients have come to expect from us. Part of the quality elements also consistency. Consistency in practices, consistency in quality. we receive multiple rounds of samples from producers, and if we sell the coffee on the first sample, which is the offer sample, we need our producers to maintain that standard for the later samples as well. Otherwise, we're unable to make that sale, and of course, it damages our relationship with the client down the chain, and also that client's perception of the producer's coffee. And that kind of leads us to our third value, which is collaboration. As touched upon earlier, we believe in building partnerships. We like to meet our producers, see what they're doing, and ensure that we have an honest and mutually beneficial relationship. We like to give market access to producers that are fighting to create a fairer value chain throughout. So producers that we see investing efforts into their product and their community. Now, Frederic did just share quite a convoluted list of upcoming EU-imposed demands and regulations. Earlier this year, CoffeeQuest actually published its first impact report, wherein we share both our existing sustainability efforts as well as our social action plan for the various reports and demands that we'll complete and publish within the upcoming year or two. Actually, I have one right here next to me. These include, amongst other things, an income and wage report, tracking and calculation of company-wide carbon footprint, and a bunch of other EU deforestation compliance as well. Of course, we need to work on that. As a smaller importer, we try our best to stay ahead of the curve. We know to expect an increase in demands and regulations from the EU. I mean, some regulations that Frederic just mentioned, like the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, it doesn't apply to us yet because we're only 10 people compared to 3,000. But still, we're already actively working towards eliminating those kind of issues in our supply chain. Partially because we never know when the EU will turn around and say, hey, provide us evidence that, you know, your supply chain is clear of these issues, and also partially just because you know, it's part of our values to create a fairer chain. So we're going to address these as soon as possible. But here again, we are tracking and monitoring all our movements to make sure we can at some stage provide evidence of what we're doing. Then can I have the next slide? Oh, actually quickly here, I'll just talk about on the left with a picture of one of our young producers, Eduardo, who he implemented a agroforestry product in Brazil, and he's just fresh out of uni, or he was fresh out of uni when he started it, and he's focusing on training farmers in the surrounding areas and educating them on the importance of agroforestry, both for the climate and also for the sustainability of the chain. So this is just the kind of example of the type of producer that we want to work with. His coffee was towards the lower range of what we'd usually import, but because we saw value in his efforts and what he was trying to achieve, that's the kind of producer that we chose to work with and support. Sorry, just want to say that quickly. Next slide. Now, I can understand that probably a lot of you had hoped for kind of more concrete, black and white answers to our demands. The truth is that for importers also, the demands and regulations are still very new, and a lot of us are still getting to know them and figuring out how to implement them. The reason that we at the CoffeeQuest promote strong relationships and traceability over concrete demands is that we believe that with these foundations, we can both quickly adapt to the new regulations and top-down demands, we being both importers and producers together. So that is why we very much urge our supply chain partners to begin implementing 100% transparency and traceability in their production now already, so that when new regulations drop and our EU supply chain or your EU supply chain partners come with a new demand, that you are able to provide evidence of the efforts that you've made already, or in the very least show them that you have the capacity to diligently keep records and track of your steps. This will reassure them that if they work with you together, you can meet these new regulations and they can rely on you to keep the necessary notes to later provide evidence or implement those changes. Just as a quick side note, to all this kind of asking of record keeping traceability, Keeping good records on your farm-based activities won't only help with meeting sustainability demands, but it will probably also significantly increase the quality of your product. We see it time and time again. We in the past worked with producers whose coffee fell below the range of accepted quality, but where we believed in the story behind the coffee. And by setting up these quality demands and working transparently with them, we're able to work together and help those producers really make a name for themselves and offer higher quality coffee with a solid backstory that can withstand the sustainability demands of the EU. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alex. It was great hearing about your requirements, your standards that you have for exporters. Now let's talk about the next topic on how to meet these meet these European sustainability demands. But before we start with that new topic, I do have a new question to you. How important is sustainability for your company? Please select one of the following. It is not important. We just started working on sustainability. We have been working on sustainability for many years, or our products are completely sustainable. Please add your answer. I see many votes coming in, so I give you a few more seconds. Okay, I'm closing the poll now in 3 seconds. Okay, now most companies mentioned that I've been working on sustainability for many years. Great to notice. Well, Alex, there are so many sustainability issues to combat. You work together with many suppliers on the sustainability. That would also mean that you would probably have some kind of approach or some recommendations that could be useful for these companies. Can you tell us a bit more about your approach and where to start and how our attendees can benefit from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of covered a lot of this already in the bits before this. But if I can recommend one thing, it's just to start getting hold of your EU importing value chain partners and ask them what you can expect them to be expecting of you, and especially in the upcoming years. In the meantime, focus on what you can do within your own communities, regardless of how small or how big. Just see what you can do on your own farms and try to stay ahead of that curve. And then when you do find that partner, hopefully if you're working with the right people, they will support you in implementing that. I think maybe now is a good time to demonstrate with some examples from our side, maybe to help get the point across. So we've got the first one here already. This one kind of falls a little bit into this is an example of our classic TCQ sourcing approach, that kind of the mainstream one, so to speak. This is a farm called Entre Volcanos. It's a project started in 1990 by the Fala family in Guatemala, and it's focused on supporting local small Guatemalan specialty coffee growers. The project is collaboratively managed and supported by the San Miguel Mill, which is a new partner of ours based in Antigua, Guatemala. The project supports 500 smallholder farmers facing low prices and labor exploitation, and the producers that are part of it receive financial assistance, technical support, and access to healthcare, amongst other things. We started working with them about 2 seasons ago after our head of sourcing for Central America, Friso, was made aware of the project and met with them on one of the sourcing trips. This is now the second year that we've been able to offer them, been able to sell their coffee, and we already have a small customer base established around the specific lot. So you can imagine as these roasters grow, they ask for slightly larger volumes of this coffee, following us to make bigger purchase and thereby providing the mill with a larger budget for them to then invest into the project, as well as other sustainability demands as they might require to address. So this is kind of the classic example that I was trying to talk about before, how we operate. If I could have the next slide, please. Also, for any of these who have specific questions, just please let me know, because I'm trying to create a vague summary here. Then this project, Mujeres de Giraldo, sorry for my accent for any of those who speak Spanish. This is an example of one of our projects from the Coffee Quest Colombia, our sister company. This project is a group of 15 Colombian women in the region of Giraldo, originally led by Jessica Parra, who is part of our Coffee Quest Colombia team. Amazing, young, ambitious woman, really cool. So her main aim is to support and motivate Colombian women to become agents of change, but more importantly, is to give them the right acknowledgement for their role in the coffee production. So Colombia, like many other countries, suffers or experiences strong gender inequality. So this project is targeted at giving women the recognition that they deserve in the chain. So Coffee Quest here partnered up with a European roaster, a client, to set up and run the program with experienced trainers within 4 areas of interest: empowerment of women and leadership, empowerment in women leadership, entrepreneurship and leadership of rural women, business management for rural women, and production and process improvement. Giraldo is a small town. There's a high level of mistrust between sellers and producers. But after a year of running the program, we've already seen some really, really great results. Women have taken action and are transforming their roles and the way that they're perceived in the community. They're now entirely responsible for their farms and management of the profits. And lastly, the quality of the coffee has also increased a lot, thanks partly to the training sessions with Coffee Quest team in Colombia. Other projects that we have in Colombia target stuff like water retention, education. So you can see that in Colombia, because we have the team out there and we just have a more focused or probably a high concentration of interactions between producers and our team, we are able to achieve slightly more in terms of sustainability efforts. The last one I wanted to talk about, the next slide. Yeah, this is one of our pioneer projects. So this is the Future Proof Coffee Collective project in Uganda. For this project, the Coffee Quest partnered with the Dutch organization MWO, as well as the Ugandan Coffee Farmers Alliance and Brand Farm, which is a private larger farm in the area. And we're investing a fund that we were given by the Dutch government into tackling issues around underpayment, gender inequality, and ecological degradation, here specifically in the communities of Chitenga and Kansera cooperatives, which is near Mubende in the central region. For the project, we started out with a risk analysis assessment phase, where we actually went to Uganda and did research with some partnering organizations to see what the core sustainability issues were. And we just started out our implementation phase this year. Of course, with the availability of external funds, we're able to target much larger issues and more professionally as well. So we were able to get in foreign consultants on gender equality. Also last week, we actually had our very first training session in Uganda, where we got a organic inputs expert, Rock and Soils, in to train 32 of our participants. The point was to learn about organic fertilizers, composting, those kind of things, to reduce how much farming households were paying on chemical inputs, as well as to help produce organically and feed the soil for long-term sustainable coffee production. The focus was very much on youth and females. We had 32 people participating in the event, 20 of them were youth, and 10 out of the 32 were female. And it was all for this round that people volunteered to participate. So we're really, really happy to see how many youth and females were excited to take part. The points then for these participants to go into the communities and share the knowledge. The cooperatives have about 900 farmers combined. So we're hoping to be able to target quite a large amount of producers. Also here you can see even those 900 producers who didn't directly have access to the training are still able to benefit and implement sustainability changes. So yeah, sorry, that's just 3 different examples. I know I'm probably going over time. but I just wanted to give you a different idea of how, even for one small importer, sustainability looks very different in the supply chain. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that. I think we're running a bit out of time, so that's why I came in. But I think in general, it's very cool to see how enthusiastic our experts are and how much there is to tell on this topic. Now, let's move from the demand side of the chain to the supply side of the chain. Now, Grace, can you tell us a bit about how you work on sustainability at Kopakama, and can you give some practical recommendations based on your experiences? Grace, are you there?
Yes, please.
Great.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about how you worked on sustainability at Kopakama?
Yeah, so I was saying about what we are doing at Kopakama. We focus on more sides or both sides, about the people, about the planet, about how to make more profits. Mainly with the environment, we do produce our coffee or process our coffee regarding or with respect to the environment. We know that in the coming years we need the soil, we need those shading trees, we need all our coffee trees to be healthy. So when we are producing or processing our coffee, we do focus on respecting the environment and the planet in general. So next slide, please. On the environmental side, we make sure that we fight against the soil erosion. We protect the water. We know near where we work, we have the Lake Kivu. We have a lake that we have to protect. We make the buffer zones between our coffee pot and the protected areas, and we make sure that we have agroforestry trees in our coffee plantations to make where birds can stay, where those trees can bring the shade into the coffee. You know, the coffee, mainly the Arabica that we produce, was found or grown in the forest. So we try to keep our coffee trees healthy by putting different agroforestry trees, and we focus also on the conservation, energy conservation. Like on the dry mill, we do use the combined solar energy and electricity. So Frederic was saying about the digesters. It's about the waste management. We know at our coffee washing stations, we depart the coffee, but the water we are using, we recycle it and for other uses like cleaning the offices or other use of water, without damaging the nearby other source of water like rivers or what. So we make sure that we make water analysis each year. We make sure that our water are healthy and they are not damaged by our processing activities. Next slide. On the social aspect, to make sure that our workers are working with respect to the national labor law. We give them leaves, we pay them on time, we make sure that where they are working, they are safe, they receive drinking water, they are they are safe in their working conditions. We provide the infrastructures or the protective equipment to help them on the field or the ways of the transport, so to make them easier to access to the coffee pots. And on the members side, we also pay the health insurance for our members, so we make sure that they gain more profit from the coffee they grow. And about the community where our coffee washing stations are located, we try to provide good water to help the community around. Also, we provide electricity near our washing stations. Next slide. So on the economic sustainability, we always train our farmers to intercrop with the coffee trees, mainly for the well-being of the soil, to protect the soil, to make it more productive using different cover crops, but also to think about after the season, after the harvesting season, because in Rwanda you have one harvesting season, so they may remain to be able to survive after the harvesting season. So when they stop to harvest the coffee, they can get other source of income, like in selling those leguminous or other plants that they planted in the coffee. And also we make sure that they gain the different bonuses from the certified coffee. Like in the organic coffee, our farmers receive a bonus of growing organic coffee. Like in fair trade, also we receive different bonuses from the buyers. And now comes the Rainforest Alliance, where have now changed the standard and adding the shared responsibility from the buyer. So we think that it will also continue to make us sustainable in the coming years. Next slide. We cannot forget about also to continue to think about the next generations, that we always focus on the youth development, where we always give them the agricultural tools, we help them in the demonstration plots, we always help them to learn more about the coffee, not only for the farming. We give them different jobs at our coffee stations, where they can work in the processing, they can go in the sorting of the parchment at grind tables. So we get them interested about the coffee sector to remain sustainable for the coming years. I can add that we also not forget the inclusion of the women, where mostly our members, like almost the half of the members are women. We have 477 women who are members of the cooperative and have a special scheme or group called Ejo Heza, which means a bright future. They come to their demonstration plot also. They have the saving and the credit schemes, where they can get some small credit for paying the school fees for their children, or for just doing small businesses. And we also think always about the climate, how to remain resilient. That's why we focus more about the organic coffee. Like for the coming years, we want to not depend much on the agrochemicals. So we try to train our farmers on how to do the compost, on how to include the different fruits, the trees in their coffee plots, so they cannot depend only on the agrochemicals, but also to protect the environment for the coming production. So I was saying about the digesters. What I said before is about to recycle the water you're using, and we also help them to think about how to be safe and to have the food security, to use the money they are getting from the coffee, how they can use it to pay different expenses at their homes, and also to remain in the coffee sector. We always dispute some more livestock like goats, to help them to get, and cows, to get a good compost, or to get good manure to put on their coffee trees. And we always provide, as well as the trainings on different things about the good agriculture practices, but also how to save the money, how to start small businesses for their economic development. Next, please.
Grace, you told me that there are many relationships and many partners in the supply chain also profit from this and then also contribute to your sustainability. Unfortunately, we are running a bit of time, so could you point out only a few of those things you'd like to do?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we always work together with the local entities or the government entities, like the lab that is providing the seedlings for our coffee nurseries. We work with the Ministry of Agriculture, the National Export Board, so for different facilitation, either for the trainings for the workers, for the trainings for farmers, and we would always approach our different partners like NGOs, like GIZ, or ASDF, so, and the different banks which give us loans for the harvesting season. But also we have different partners like those certification bodies that are always helping us to be certified, to remain on the coffee market, like to always be sure that we don't lose buyers, not only for the quantity, but also to remain, to have consistency in the quality. As always, buyers need to know that Kopakama coffee, as they have starting to buy from us, we keep that consistency in the quality. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Grace. Now, I think it's important to take a bit of time for the questions that came in. Simone, can you take over, please?
Absolutely, thank you. I think it's become quite clear to our audience that all these sustainability requirements, whether we're talking about legal obligations or certifications or simply preferences on the side of importers, require significant investment, right? There needs to be changes in the processes and procedures, new technologies in some cases. So I've seen quite some questions come in about how to find financing to make this transition towards a more sustainable business, how to find partners that can maybe help you share these costs and share the burden. Perhaps Frederic, to start it out, would you have any ideas or tips you can give the audience?
On mute. Okay. Yes. There are steps that you can take to find partners. Like we mentioned, you have to look for ways to get money. That is also difficult. So the first thing is to meet and talk with groups that care about the environment and who want to help your businesses like yours. Go into meetings and join group events online. You can meet partners, for example. You can also find ideas like as somebody is on the field, like Grace is on the field, talk about how they got their partnership, so you can be able to get ideas of, oh, so there's this, actually there are these companies that help people like me. So I think Grace's list on how on companies, for example, banks and other partners that they help with is also very good. You can approach some of them. These groups can help you to adhere to some of these requirements. You can also work with research institutions and universities. Some of them have funding to help implement some of these practices. And so it's all about you trying to work with your connections and getting examples from others that have succeeded or gone ahead of you. For example, Kopakama, Alex is also here and all that. So that is what I will study. So that's what I would say. That's where you can, that is the first things you can do to be able to get funding. And maybe those on the field like Grace and Alex can add more to that.
Absolutely. I saw that the question was also pointing towards that, the importer side, Alex, because I saw one question coming in asking, referring to the fact that there is an expectation that importers will pay a premium when exporters make these efforts and these investments. Any tips on how to find the right importers that are willing to pay that little bit of extra for more sustainably produced coffee?
Yeah, of course, I'll say that Coffee Quest is the best. No, but in general, I think in the Arabica market, at least, there tends to be paying a price premium tends to be quite common. I would say that probably most specialty importers do pay one. Other than that, yeah, it's difficult to say. I have had a conversation with the Robusta versus Arabica side. For Robusta right now, because it's traded lower, there is still there is not yet really a big specialty market for it, and therefore it's still difficult to get that price premium on it. We still work in an industry where, at least from the specialty side, which is anyone I can speak for, quality and taste is a huge deciding factor. More and more European companies are being pressured into valuing other aspects, like environmental sustainability aspects as well. Bear in mind that we have all these EU regulations on us as well. We have CSR demands. So there is more pressure, and there will be more pressure on companies to pay premiums there as well. If it's any help for Robusta producers, we're working on a specialty Robusta. That's also what we're trying to do in Uganda. And there is a big movement in the scene to normalize a price premium on Robusta coffee as well, taking into consideration environmental efforts and social efforts as well. But I think for now, yeah, just see if you can find the right partner that works again, I suppose.
No, it's already encouraging to know that these importers do exist and that there's quite a broad range of companies that are willing to pay that premium, as long as you're able to show the efforts you've made, or even to ask for help if you are able to identify a key issue you'd like to work on, and perhaps reach out to them and get funding that way. So keeping an eye on the time, I would just want to tell the audience that we will send the slides afterwards to all those who signed up for this webinar. And we will also include a file where we try to answer the questions, because we have been keeping track of the questions that have been coming in. Unfortunately, we cannot answer them all right now, but we will have both our in-house experts as well as those present at the webinar today have a look at those, draft something up, and get back to you. So fear not if your question has not been answered. But I've also seen quite some questions coming in specifically for the experts. Grace, people are very interested in your work on the field. Alex, of course, as an importer, Frederic as a researcher. I've seen quite some questions targeted. Would you be willing to share a way that people could contact you in the future if you have a way to, if they have any more questions?
Yes, definitely. People can contact us. Yeah. Me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the easiest way is probably email. I don't know if we can share them afterwards somehow to all the participants. I'm happy for my email to be shared. Also, the Coffee Quest does have an Instagram, which is very active, and a LinkedIn. And on both of those, we update and post any opportunities or any changes in the chain. So do check those out. Yeah.
LinkedIn is okay for me, so I'm finding me on LinkedIn.
Great. And Grace, what about you? Is there a way people can learn more about Kopakama?
Oh, we do also have an Instagram page called Kopakama Coffee, so you can always go there and visit our different posts, so you can get linked.
Great, thank you all for being so willing to stay in touch with our audience. And we will also make sure to include a bit more information to everybody in the email that will follow up along with the slides, as well as the questions that the audience has been asking. So with this, I'd like to close off the Q&A section. We'll get to your questions later on. And perhaps, Tjalling, if we can just show the final slides.
Yeah, sure. Let's go to closing of this session. Well, actually, I think that our experts have given you many different recommendations and information on becoming more sustainable and adhering to European requirements. I do have one final question for you, Simone. What final recommendation would you have for our attendees?
Sure, and I think this fits in with a lot of the questions I saw coming in. Of course, you've all heard me talk about the wonderful market information that we produce at CBI, and it's not just done in-house. We primarily rely on experts such as Frederic and Tjalling to produce these wonderful reports for us. So I would just like to emphasize and really invite you to visit our website at cbi.eu. You can then enter specifically into the market information section, and this will be divided by sectors. You might not be able to see it here, but the very first one is coffee. And there you'll be able to see the kind of studies I mentioned at the start. So information about the trends and opportunities of the European market, a more detailed section about the requirements, both those legal requirements that you need to adhere to, as well as those that are being increasingly requested by European importers, and practical tips on how to get on your journey exporting to Europe, as well as starting to improve your sustainability. So please do visit the website. I hope the information you heard today kind of got your appetite started to hear more about this topic. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Tjalling, to close this off.
Well, I think that then we covered it all, and I mean, not all questions, but covered all the content that we'd like to share with you. So I would like to thank you for listening, and I hope to see you next time during one of our follow-up webinars. See you later.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful
day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.